Now we shall study about effect of light on photosynthesis. So we know that plants perform photosynthesis, and for performing photosynthesis plants uses sunlight. So the solar radiations that strikes the planet Earth during daytime, out of the total solar radiation, 2% of the solar energy are being used by the green parts of the plant to perform photosynthesis. Now, generally photosynthesis is being done by the visible spectrum of light. If we study the visible spectrum of light, it is the mixture of 7 different lights which we generally consider as VGO. So these are the 7 monochromatic lights that amalgamates among each other and ultimately radiates, which we consider as a visible spectrum of light, which consists of 7 monochromatic lights, that is violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange and red. Now out of these 7 monochromatic lights, experimentally it has been observed that photosynthesis takes place in blue light zone and in red light zone. The wavelength of blue light zone lies in between 400 to 500 nanometer, while that for red light it lies between 600 to 700 nanometer. Beyond red light there lies the far red light, which we cannot observe by our naked eyes. Now, if we recall the general formula of physics, which is E is inversely proportional to 1 by lambda, where E is the energy, that is energy is inversely proportional to 1 by wavelength. That is lambda signifies wavelength. It can be concluded that lesser the wavelength of light, greater is the energy. While greater is the wavelength of light, less is the energy. So, if we compare blue light with that of the red light, it can be stated that the energy potentiality of blue light is more than that of the red light. So, out of the 7 monochromatic lights of the visible range, photosynthesis is generally performed under blue light zone and under red light zone. Now, maximum photosynthesis, if we consider our maximum photosynthesis, So maximum photosynthesis takes place in red light zone. Maximum photosynthesis takes place in red light zone. Generally, if you have gone through any plant physiology book, it is clearly written over there that under blue light, maximum absorption takes place, while maximum action, that is act of photosynthesis, takes place under red light zone. That is, absorption maxima occurs under blue light zone, while the action maxima occurs under red light zone. Now, what I am trying to say, if I plot it graphically, then you will be observing that if the x-axis represents wavelength of light, and if I plot the wavelength of light as 300 nanometer, 400 nanometer, 500 nanometer, 600 nanometer and 700 nanometer, and if in the y-axis, if I consider extinction coefficient, that is molar extinction coefficient, that is mole inverse, centimeter inverse, because when we measure rate of photosynthesis, we measure it using spectrophotometer, and when we measure something using spectrophotometer, then the concept of extinction coefficient naturally comes. So now if we plot the effect of blue light and red light, what will be observed is that one peak will appear in between 400 and 500 nanometer, while another peak will appear in between 600 and 700 nanometer. The peak which is appearing between 400 and 500 nanometer is for the effect of blue light, because in between 400 to 500 nanometer, it is the zone of the blue light where maximum absorption takes place, while the action, that is the photosynthesis, takes place, action potentiality of photosynthesis occurs in the red light zone. So the two lights or the two monochromatic lights that participates in photosynthesis do not perform the same function. One helps in the absorption and other helping in the action. Means blue light is being absorbed by the plant and red light is being used by the plant to perform the photosynthesis. So there lies a confusion, that is plant is absorbing blue light. Plant is absorbing blue light. That is when solar radiation strikes, out of the 7 monochromatic lights under visible range, plant used to absorb only blue light. But while performing photosynthesis, plants uses red light. So how it is possible? Plant is not absorbing red light, but plant is performing photosynthesis on the red light. Plant is absorbing blue light, but plant is not performing photosynthesis on the blue light. So there must be certain sequence of events that is definitely taking place inside the body of the plant, which is ultimately helping plant to convert this absorbed blue light into red light, ultimately under which photosynthesis is taking place, because there is no other alternative option, because plant is not absorbing the red light. So definitely blue light is getting converted to red light. Now the question comes, how this blue light converts into red light. That we will be studying under the red shift effect. So now we will be studying about red shift effect. Now what is red shift effect? We have already studied that the energy for photosynthesis is provided by sun. So the radiations of suns strikes the planet Earth during morning or the daytime. When it strikes, some portion of the sunlight is also received by the plants, or more specifically by the leaves of the plants. So we have already studied that visible light performs photosynthesis. Out of the 7 monochromatic light that ultimately amalgamates to form the visible light, plant absorbs only blue light. So during daytime, when sunlight strikes, the green portion of the leaves absorbs the blue light. Now where the blue light is being striking? The blue light is striking the cuticle, because the outermost layer is the cuticle. Cuticle is present in most of the plants. It may be present, it may not be present, but we are considering that it is first striking the cuticle. After striking the cuticle, the light is penetrating the plasma membrane. So this is the light which first strikes the cuticle. After striking the cuticle, it penetrating the cuticle and coming to the plasma membrane. After entering the plasma membrane, it is entering into the mesophyll cells inside the cytoplasm of mesophyll tissues. So it is entering the cytoplasm. After entering the cytoplasm, it is crossing the outer layer of the chloroplast. Outer layer of chloroplast. After crossing the outer layer of the chloroplast, the light has to cross the inner layer of the chloroplast. Layer of chloroplast. So the light first striking the cuticular layer, then it crossing the plasma membrane, after crossing the plasma entering into the cytoplasm, then within the cytoplasm there lies the subcellular organelle which is chloroplast. The light is first crossing the outer layer of the chloroplast, then it is crossing the inner layer of the chloroplast, then it is entering into the thylakoid. For entering the thylakoid, it has to first cross the outer layer of thylakoid. Then it has to come to the inner layer of thylakoid. So the light is again crossing the outer layer, then it is coming to the inner layer, and within the inner layer there lies the quantasomes. So there lies the quantasomes. So if I consider the quantasome will have three distinct layers. The outer layer is of carotenoids, the middle layer is of chlorophyll B, and the inner layer is chlorophyll A. So the light then enters into the quantasome, crosses the carotenoid layer, after that it crosses the layer of the chlorophyll B, and then crossing to the layer of the chlorophyll A, finally it reaches to the center of the molecule, which is either PS1 or PS2, where it performs the reaction. So when the solar radiation strikes the leaf surface, the radiation has to cross, or initially it is blue light. Okay, blue light means the wavelength is between 400 to 500 nanometer. So wavelength is less, so that means energy is more, because we are following the formula E is inversely proportional to 1 by lambda. Means if wavelength is less, then energy will be more. Now this blue light has to cross so many layers, one after another, to reach the reaction center, which is either PS1 or PS2. So while crossing different layers, energy will be utilized, because these are the hurdles that light has to cross. If anyone has to cross certain hurdles, so definitely there will be utilization of energy. So energy will be utilized. So if energy is being utilized to cross each and every layer, so definitely energy will decrease, because energy is being utilized to cross each and every layer. So ultimately, after crossing a single layer, certain amount of energy declines. Then one more layer is being crossed, then again energy declines. One more layer crosses, then again energy declines. So in this way, when the light ultimately reaches the reaction center, the energy declines to such extent that the wavelength of light lies in the range of 650 to 700 nanometer, which is the red light zone, where the reaction takes place. So this is the reason and this is called red shift effect. What is shifted? Blue light is being shifted to red light. How? The blue light, when crosses different layers, it utilizes the energy. When energy decreases, wavelength increases. So ultimately, when the blue light reaches the reaction center, its energy decreases to such extent that the wavelength of light is equivalent to that of the red light, which is why absorption takes place in blue light zone, while the action, that is the photosynthesis takes place in the red light zone. I think all of you have understood the concept why absorption maximum occurs in the red light zone and action maximum occurs in the red light zone. In this regard, we can study one more experiment, that how scientists initially came to know that photosynthesis is being performed under only blue light and red light. For performing the experiment, what scientist has done is that they have used an container and the containers are being uniformly separated by separating plates that bears distinct minute pores throughout the surface, through which small size organisms can pass but large size organisms cannot pass. In each of the separated zones, monochromatic light are being used. VIBGYOR, that is VIBGYOR. That is, in the first zone only violet light has been incidented, in the second zone only indigo, in the third zone only blue light, in the fourth zone only green light, in the fifth zone only yellow light, in the sixth and seventh zone orange and red light has been incidented subsequently. Now the entire tank has been filled up with water and has been mixed with photosynthetic organisms. The entire setup was allowed to rest for a certain period of time. After a certain duration of time, what it was observed is that almost most of the photosynthetic microbes either accumulated in the blue light zone or they have accumulated in the red light zone. Initially, the photosynthetic organisms are being equally distributed in all the zones, but through the minute pores that are present on the plates, these photosynthetic organisms has migrated and has either accumulated in the blue light zone or in the red light zone. So from this, it was clear that photosynthesis either take place in blue light zone or in the red light zone. So in our next class, we shall study about Rubisco and photolysis of water.